All of our administrators are busy at the moment. Please hold the line and we will answer your call as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we are still busy. Please continue to hold. Unfortunately, we are still busy. Please continue to hold.
Good afternoon, you're through to Single Point of Access, Finn speaking. How can I help?
Yes, good afternoon, Vin. It's Mr. Hussain here. I'm looking to get in touch with Mr. What's his name now? Christopher Browell. It's regarding my brother, Mr. Talib Hussain, and date of birth 15/9/1960.
Oh, right, okay, just bear with me a moment. Can I just say your first name again, please?
It's Shazad.
And can I take a contact telephone number?
No.
Okay. Can I take your brother's date of birth?
15/9/1960.
And did you say it was Talib Hussain?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, right, let me just get the details up. Okay. And is it Christopher Browell you wanted to speak to?
Christopher Browell.
Yeah, okay, understood. And what's the call regarding?
It's ongoing matters. He's aware of it.
Okay. Let me try the line for you, just bear with me.
Hi, Shazad.
Oh, hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm okay. You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. I think we had a conversation last week, and I think a week before. And obviously, there's been some other developments that I wanted to talk to you about. But I just wanted to know if there's been any other developments on your end, or any further information you can provide me with.
No, nothing. No.
Okay. Well, where did we leave things last?
I think we said that we'd kind of leave it. That you maybe might call me in the future, but
Yeah. And that,
a bit of a...
yeah, I mean, obviously, it was I brought several issues to your attention, and nothing. There doesn't seem to be any progress made on those. So, for example, the issue with my brother's medication, GP practice, the outstanding issues with his finances, the issue concerns that we have regarding our nefarious brother Adalat. But so yeah, that's how I left things. But you see, I find that on several previous occasions I've tried to do this, haven't I? In November, if you remember, we reached the same point, and I had to disengage, and I said, look, I don't, we've got a final hearing coming up regarding Talib's accommodation at the end of November. I don't think we're going to go any forward, and so I looked to end it in November. And if you remember previously, prior to that, I had looked to end it in August when you had contacted me. So what happens is that I am looking to end the relationship with yourself. Alright, and look to reasonably bring it to like a park, it to a position. But then you, the local authority, keep on triggering me and antagonizing me in the background. So what's happened now is that since our last conversation, the local authority has invoiced us a council tax liability for the last year in the name of me and my brother without any like involvement of ourselves. Now, obviously, that is that's like a very triggering thing. That on the one hand, the local authority have commissioned the services of the housing association to make us homeless again. And on the other hand, when I'm looking to deal with the housing association, they are now sending us like invoices for council tax. And you do understand that neither I or my brother would be liable to council tax. But more importantly, me and my brother my brother specifically would be allowed or be eligible for housing benefit. The housing benefit would then cover the cost of our accommodation here to the housing association. And so the housing association for a whole year have basically not given us a contract under the council's instructions, and therefore no doubt that liability of a year of unpaid council tax rental income is no doubt going to be leveraged against us at some future point, because at this moment in time a whole year's worth of council tax is being levelled against us. I feel aggrieved at the fact that you continue to make these malevolent moves, and not you personally, Mr. Browell, but obviously you, the council, continue to make these very antagonistic and malevolent moves, through the sleight of hand in the background, without consulting me, without informing me, or without anything, and then now giving us a council tax liability. Now, obviously, we're not in a position to pay the council tax liability because you have got all the money, number one, and number two is that I don't even know where to go from here, because the council tax liability would have ordinarily we would have received a remittance to or benefit to. Now, what concerns me is that right now it's in the name of my brother and myself. However, in February 2019, February 2020, I think, the local authority have written to my brother's GP in Bradford at the time and asked for further information regarding his capacity because they wanted to deal with his council tax liability. But at the time, he never had prior to this letter now, he's never had a council tax liability in the past. So there's a lot of malevolence going on, and I'm really at a loss of what to do. Hence why I'm calling you up again, because I've just received this letter saying that we're now liable for council tax. Now, obviously my brother's not going to be, neither I or my brother are effectively responsible, liable for council tax because, we don't even know if we've got accommodation here. So I just wanted to touch base with you regarding this, further development. And I appreciate that you've not sent the council tax liability, but somebody has, and I don't know who to speak to.
Well, is there not a telephone number on the letter, and you can explain that as yourself and Talib are not in work, or that you won't be liable to pay the council tax?
No, that's not the problem here, Mr. Browell. The problem is that who has done this? Somebody's done this obviously now. So for example, if we had registered ourselves and that was as a consequence of our actions, then obviously I can deal with it. But somebody's made this, has done this in the background. all right, without consulting me or without making me aware. That's where the malevolence starts. So there's no point dealing with a malevolent issue if it's malevolent to start with. Does that make...
I can understand how you think that it might be malevolent or there's something more to it, but it could be that the council tax department just know that you're living there now,
yeah.
So they will
okay.
allow to move.
Okay, and who's told them that?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, that's the important part, innit? Who's told them that? We've not told anybody that, have we? Officially, we're still living in Oldham. My brother's still registered in Oldham, isn't he? We can't officially live here. There's a difference between what's officially happening and what's the reality. All right, difference between rhetoric and reality. On paper, I mean, this is, Mr. Browell, we're returning back to this position of what's on paper and what the real thing is. There is a incongruity towards what's really happening and what it seems like is happening on the papers. All right, and what concerns me, why this has been particularly alarming or concerning to me personally, is because, as you're aware, one of the properties that my brother that we have, which was in Thornbury, that was originally in my brother's name, then my brother put it into my name. But you know what happened is that, irrespective of myself having the title of the property, this is in Thornbury, my brother remained the beneficiary, you see. So he was eligible for council tax benefit rebate. So, like prior to 2014, that's what was happening. Even though the property was registered in my name, which was an organic process that happened over time, it was actually my brother's property, and we had made an application for council tax on that exemption on that property, which we were receiving because my brother had to leave that property in order to come to this property in a primary way, so I can provide him with care. So he was eligible for a council tax rebate or exemption, basically. And then what happened in 2014, somebody made a decision automatically to take the council tax liability off my brother's name and then put it onto my name for that property in Thornbury, without consulting me, without anything. And that was malevolent, because at the same time, remember, there were steps being taken to murder my brother Nazim at the care home in 2014. So automatically, when these things happen, where decisions are made in the background without my prior understanding or awareness, I understand that's malevolent. All right, because those things should not be happening. Like, for example, that should not have happened in 2014 without consulting me, without seeking an explanation. People at Browell Council, the tax office, just simply decided to take the council tax liability off my brother's name and put it onto my name, because the property title had subsequently been put onto my name through my brother's authority. So because they were targeting me then, they put the property on my council tax liability on my name in order to further target me, because we were receiving already exemptions for that tax liability. So that happened in 2014. Subsequently, several months later, the local authority, murdered my brother and tried to frame me for his death. That all did not happen. Then eventually convicted me and sent me to prison. And then you've said that this property belongs to your brother Talib. So on the one hand, it belongs to my brother Talib, so you can take control of it and take possession of it. But when it comes to tax liability, because it's on my name, you're making me liable for it. So that's what's happened previously to a property, all right, regarding my brother Talib. Now, in regards to this property, my brother has no council tax liability. Somebody has unilaterally in the background, just decided themselves all of a sudden, just in the last week, all right, that they're going to make us liable for the council tax. So that who's informed them is an issue of concern to me, because remember, I had also raised this as an issue with you previously. So who's told our GP practice in Oldham that we've come to Bradford? We've never informed them of this. And if you have informed them, then you have no authority to inform them, because you have nothing to do with his health and welfare. So obviously those are outstanding issues. And then previously I've made you aware, in August, somebody's automatically informed the DWP to stop my benefit money, a carer's allowance. So because they're saying that I'm not providing you with any care, and I need to respond to a letter that they're going to send me in October. So, a lot of malevolent things are happening. So, obviously it's very disheartening. or antagonistic, that on the one hand you're making these maneuvers in the background, forcing me to react, and then when I do react and I don't react with aggression, all I do is send emails and record things and try to publicize things, then you get me on that. So you're antagonizing me on the one hand, the council, into getting a reaction out of me, and then when I do react, then you say, oh, look at the way he's reacting, he's being aggressive, abusive, and so on and so forth. So it's like a lose-lose situation for me and a win-win situation for yourself. And ideally, this comes to the fact that this is not being done by the council tax department. It's been done by the decision maker, the very same decision maker whom is effectively by proxy instructing you to contact me or engage with me, the same decision maker who's doing all this stuff, but will not, number one, identify who they are or look to engage with me so we can look to resolve the situation. Yeah, so obviously there is a decision maker, there's a single decision maker that's targeting me specifically. All right, and utilizing the whole apparatus of the local authority, the powers that it has, and abusing those powers to target me. And not only is it doing that, using the local authorities' powers, it's also going to all of its associates, all right, and equally getting them to gang up on me. So the associates being West Yorkshire Police, Greater Manchester Police, particularly West Yorkshire Police, because obviously the local authority fund West Yorkshire Police, and obviously they have an association with Greater Manchester Police. But more importantly, they are going through the Housing Association, all right, Manningham Housing Association. That's their associate, targeting me through them. They're targeting me through the Office of the Public Guardian. All right, so that's they're utilizing the Office of the Public Guardian to target me. They're using the judges and the judiciary, making judges specifically to victimize me, and using the courts and tribunal services to target me. All right, so it's not just the council on its own whim. It's using all these professional organizations, such as the ones I've mentioned, also including the Department of Work and Pension, which is targeting me, which is also the Information Commissioner's Office, which has been targeting me. But in addition to all these professional institutions that the local authority has sway and influence over, and are collectively under a joint enterprise targeting me, where in the past they've murdered my mother, they're also, which is fair enough, you're the state apparatus, but they're also utilizing my relatives in this joint enterprise, namely my sister Shaida, my sister Halda, my brother Adalat, my nieces and nephews Wasim, Tasveer and Shagufta, to cooperate with yourselves to further target me. So, it's like, where do you go from here? Like, today I've been made aware, I've made these allegations in the past in regards to this ongoing case from the Manningham Housing Association in the courts. It's my understanding that the judge in the court that had contacted you or contacted the council on the 30th of November only made a judge and started working that week, and they only became a judge, it's my understanding, because Bradford Council nominated them to be a judge to do them a quid pro quo favour in order to make me homeless once again. But more interestingly, the judges are meant to be independent from the courts and tribunal services. They'll tell you, oh no, we're independent, we've got nothing to do, we only work in the courts and tribunal services. The courts and tribunal services are a separate entity compared to the judiciary and the judges who work in the courts and tribunal services, but are completely independent from them. Alright, and this makes no sense, because today I found out that the head of the courts and tribunal services is one Mr. Nick Goodwin. Mr. Nick Goodwin was the public guardian previously, in regards to my brother Talib and my mum's case. So it's the same people. So I've got one person's name, Mr. Nick Goodwin, but Mr. Nick Goodwin previously, as the public guardian, was under the control and influence of the Bradford Council, and now he's the head of the courts and tribunal services, which are equally acting malevolently. Like, for example, so coming back to more things that you're familiar with. Now, this final order by District Judge Beckley appointing you, the local authority, as Talib's deputy, was obviously, as you're aware, in May. He made this order at the end of May, without my awareness, without anybody else's involvement, and then spent several months until the 6th of August to issue it out. All right, to get it stamped. But then didn't send it to me until October. All right, and then in October, you were supposed to come and give that order to my brother Talib, which should have been done within 28 days, but you did not come, you, Mr. Browell, did not receive instructions from the Office of the Public Guardian, all right, to come and deliver those letters to us, which you proceeded to do on the 22nd of December, 2022. So can you see it's all the same motley crew in it? So Mr. Nick Goodwin, all right, who was previously the Office of the Public Guardian, all right, and then through his office, they've instructed you to come and deliver the papers to us. So I've got your name. I know you're involved, or in a like much separated manner. And I got Mr. Nick Goodwin's name, all right, who was the public guardian, who's now the head of the courts and tribunal services, all right, abusing the position of power. But then nobody's coming forward to identify themselves who is the decision maker regarding continuing to victimize me and put this position into place. So are you able to assist me to tell me who I can go to speak to at a more senior level?
No, not really. I mean, we haven't had a meeting, a professional meeting or an MDT for several months now. I'm not aware that there's one person making particular decisions or anything like that. And I don't, if there is, I don't know who that person would be.
Okay, because can you understand that, right now, my brother's got nothing to do with the care trust, has it? Even though you part of City Mental Health Team, which is a subsidiary or this, I don't even know what this kind of fraudulent setup is, but he's got no involvement with the Bradford District Care Trust, namely, he's not under any psychiatrist, is he?
No, but he's allocated to CMHT still.
Yeah, but CMHT is not a legal entity, is it?
I'm not sure. I don't know what you.
Well, what I mean by that is that, you see, I'm a legal entity. In the eyes of the law, I have power of prosecution, so I can prosecute somebody. So I'm a legal entity, all right. And so it can be Mr. Hussain versus X, Y, and Z. Bradford Council is a legal entity as well. It can be sued or it can sue people. In the past, you, Bradford Council, under the arm of Regina, have sued on me. So you're a legal entity. Bradford District Care Trust, all right, is a legal entity. It can be sued and it can sue people. Yes? The City Mental Health Team, as far as I understand it, I can't understand, it's not a legal entity.
Right.
Because it's not like a corporation, is it? Like in the eyes of the law, you have you have persons, either natural persons, namely me and you, all right, as natural people, or we have corporations as people. So the local authority is a corporation, the care trust is a corporation. I don't even know what City Mental Health Team is.
So you're right, it's part of BDCT, I believe, yeah.
Yes.
Bradford District Care Trust.
But Bradford District Care Trust, it's a department within the Bradford District Care Trust. But it can't be, they've got no involvement in this, because it's got nothing to do with the care trust employees, has it? Like I said, this is a very grey area, which I effectively think is a fraud. It is a corporate fraud, which is my best understanding of it. And we've had this conversation before in the past, where I'm receiving letters from the Bradford District Care Trust, but they're originating from Bradford Council, namely yourself. So the reality is that this City Mental Health Team, all right, or City Mental Health, City Mental Health, is it team, is it?
Community Mental Health Team.
Yeah, see, community
mental health team.
Oh, sorry, the Community Mental Health Team. Yeah, it's a team. A team can only be within an organization. So this team has people in it that don't belong in that organization. So you are a Bradford Council employee, yet you're in this team under secondment. Is that correct?
I don't think it's secondment, no, but
under
not like subcontracted, but it's an integrated team, which means that there's employees from both the NHS Trust and from the local authority.
That does not exist in law. There's no such thing as integrated teams. There's no such thing as integrating two corporations. Because if you integrate two corporations, all right, they either become a subsidiary or they become a partnership. But there's no fee. Can you understand this? Can you understand why I'm struggling with this? Because I know in law there's no such thing as integrating two. Because the problem lies is that if you integrate a local authority with a trust, it's a conflict of interest. Because the trust deals with the healthcare and the local authority deals with social care. All right. If you integrate the two, which has proven to be the case in my personal understanding, it's a conflict of interest, because when you go to a third party, such as the courts, theoretically speaking, the local authority can say, look, this person lacks capacity. But if you're part of the same team, then effectively is the right hand, making a claim against the left, getting assistance from the left hand, getting assistance from the right hand. It's the same thing, isn't it? If you're integrated, you can't then get independent capacity assessments. And in my mother's case, that's exactly what's happened. A member of Bradford District Care Trust, a Dr. Singh, I believe, all right, was giving the stating that my mother lacked mental capacity, whilst the local authority was pursuing a welfare case. Can you understand that legally speaking, this should not happen? There's no provisions to have the local authority and the NHS District Care Trust amalgamated into one organization, isn't it? If you integrated, can I just ask, what's the governance of in that integration?
It's because when you work with people with mental health difficulties, sometimes there might be safeguarding inquiries, or there might be things that require kind of more social care kind of involvement. So in that way, if there's say safeguarding, then that will usually go to social workers who work for the local authority and things like that. So it's supposed to be kind of skills matching. That's the idea of it.
Okay, well, can you understand that, my existence, the reason I exist and the reason that you exist is because your parents got together and created you. So you are the product of your parents, just like I'm the product of my parents. Once I've been born, I've obviously registered into the state. All right. The state then creates other apparatuses. The local authority has been brought into existence by an act of parliament. All right. That's how the local authority has come into a state of existence. The NHS Trust is come into a state of existence through an act of parliament. Parliament must decide to permit or allow the creation of these corporations. Like, for example, if I want to create a corporation, I can go register myself as in company house, then I've created a company. All right, that's a corporation. That's a legal entity that can be sued or can sue people. All right, so that's what I'm trying to understand, is that it's an act of parliament that has created the council. It's an act of parliament that's created the NHS Trust. It must therefore be an act of parliament that looks to integrate both these things. And as far as my understanding is, as you're aware from our previous conversation, there is obviously an ongoing issue with healthcare and social care, and obviously as a form of efficiency because of the cutbacks in both the NHS and the local authority. It's a cost-saving exercise where integration would be ideally beneficial and a cost-saving exercise. And I understand that. But as my understanding is that no legislation has been presently passed to bring about that integration. And that's what I'm failing to understand, is that you're telling me that the community mental health team is an integrated service, but that integrated service can only be integrated through, I believe, some sort of legal framework. So that's what I'm failing to understand, and hopefully you can assist me, is that under what legal framework has Bradford Council got an integrated service with the NHS Trust, which is obviously now proving to be a conflict of interest in my particular circumstances, because I should have nothing against the trust or NHS, but I've got outstanding issues with Bradford Council. So for example, let me just give you an example here. If I don't pay my council tax and I kick off with the council then can't tell one of its integrated teams, the NHS Trust, to put me, have me sectioned under the Mental Health Act and put me into a hospital. Because can you understand, under my particular circumstances, that is where the problem of conflict of interest arises. If you're integrating two different things, this has to be done with the understanding of the public. all right, and this must be then enacted into law through an act of parliament. And as far as I can see, that's not happened. And so in our particular circumstances, my brother Talib does not need the Bradford District Care Trust. He's obviously, as you can appreciate, receiving no input or no services from Bradford District Care Trust. The only services, the reason that he's still registered or still in the community mental health team is because of Bradford Council's personal interest in me and looking to victimize me. And this is one of the reasons that I've stated that he's been discharged from the psychiatrist Dr. Rashmi Dixon in August 2021. And therefore, what should ideally happen is that once a person's been discharged, the record should go back to the GP practice. In our particular circumstances, that GP practice is in Oldham. All right. So once he's discharged from the district care trust for his acute mental health problems, that matter should be then returned to the GP. In these circumstances, the GP is in Oldham. And then what happens is that under such circumstances, and if there's ongoing issues regarding social care, which is particularly in regards to my brother, everything is to do with social care, then that should be going to the local authority, namely the local authority either in Bradford or in Oldham, and an allocated social worker should be allocated to my brother, who we can identify as a social worker. Because as it presently stands, you are technically not a social worker, are you? You're technically his care coordinator in the city mental health team. All right. And ideally, one of the problems here is that he ideally needs an allocated social worker from Bradford Council, which I've already have been stating since January 2019 that is what should be happening. All right. I'm quite happy to. I'm engaging with you because I'm forced to do so. But can you understand that if my brother is discharged from the care trust, and he has an allocated social worker, that is a better framework for me to be working with to say that he can have access to his social worker, he can have access to, carry out an assessment and stuff. But because we're in this grey area, because you're technically, officially his care coordinator, not his social worker, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not a social worker, you're his care coordinator in the community mental health team, which is an integrated service between Bradford Council and the District Care Trust, which is, I'm explaining, is a grey area, which is obviously I'm not comfortable dealing with something that's a bit of a grey area. And then at the same time, you're coming down, effectively, when you come down to see Talib, you're not coming down in your capacity in relation to the Bradford District Care Trust. Because it's got nothing to do with the care trust, because the care trust's involvement in my brother is only up to the point where he's being seen by a psychiatrist at the hospital. All right, and he's having ongoing care needs. Those were terminated upon his discharge from the Dr. Rashmi Dixon. However, you, the local authority, are refusing to discharge him from the community mental health team because of this grey area that you, the local authority, have created. And one of the reasons that we're in this grey area, all right, is because you, the local authority, have criminally convicted me of financially abusing my brother, and yet in turn I have stated that if I'm forced to provide care for my brother after being criminally convicted of being set up to go to prison, then I have a right to charge £1 million, which is the cost of the care, which you're unwilling to do. So we're in this grey area because of the creations of the local authority. Now, one of the reasons that we're in this grey area also, from my understanding, and maybe you can assist me in this, is that, you keep on telling me that Mr. Talib is your client and you have a right to access to him. But I'm just thinking, what role do I play in this situation? What legal rights do I have over my brother Talib? Because previously, I have been his, in law, there should be something in law in there that allows me to act on behalf of my brother Talib. So in law, my brother has appointed me his DWP appointee to manage his finances. You've undone that, given it to Adalat, then now taken responsibility for his finances yourself. So you, the local authority in law, are now being recognized as his deputy. In the past, so my brother has given me lasting power of attorney, which you've negated, and that can't happen now. All right. He's also so that leaves us in a bit of a grey area. I'm not his deputy. I'm not his lasting power of attorney holder. All right. But what is not being codified is there's nowhere I can go to become his guardian. Effectively, Mr. Browell, I am his guardian. All right. It's not something that's recognized in law, because obviously guardianship only relates to children. So you have guardianship orders where children need to have a guardian to protect their interests because they're vulnerable, because they're underage, or because they're under development. So they usually have, like, under these kind of like precarious circumstances, that are public guardian, or public guardians, or no, sorry, child guardians or guardianship orders put in place to allocate somebody as a guardian for that vulnerable individual child. Under these circumstances, there's somebody called a public guardian, all right, who's allocated to manage his deputyship roles, for somebody to become his deputy, all right. But I'm not his deputy. We don't need the public guardian. I'm his guardian, and I act in his best interest. But there's no legal paperwork for me to give you, because the politicians or the parliamentarians have decided not to create this. They're not relying on adult guardians. All right, they have children guardians and guardianship orders or a framework in place. Or am I mistaken in this? Other than a lasting power of attorney, a deputyship order, or a DWP appointee, what other legal authority can I put in place to act on behalf of my brother?
Yeah, I'm not. That's it, really. I think.
Yeah.
Those options.
So this is a failure of the law, the legal system. Because the legal system normally states that because children under the age of 18 or under the age of 16 lack capacity, are recognized to not have mental capacity, not have power of consent. So children under the age of 16 cannot consent because they don't have the mental capacity to, give informed consent. So under those circumstances, anybody who's under the age of 16, if they can't give consent, then a guardian needs to come in place. Usually a parent or a public authorized guardian or something like this, because it's all to do with issue of consent, isn't it? Informed consent. Now, in relation to an adult, that because an adult is assumed to have mental capacity to give consent, all right, to consent for anything. You can't do anything without consent. So the parliamentarians have not created something that we need or I would need, which is a private guardian. My brother has a right to a private guardian, and the reason that he wants a private guardian is got nothing to do with his mental capacity, all right, which is like a cognitive degeneration. He wants somebody to be his guardian because, look, number one, he doesn't speak English. He doesn't read or write English. So he needs somebody to correspond with him, to him in his own language to help him understand things. So he has full capacity. So somebody can come from a different country, all right, and come into this country and be a citizen and not speak the language. That's what's happened in my brother Talib's case. So that's one of the problems you have. And the same problem I have, my sister has. They don't speak English. They don't read or write English. But that should not negate from anything. So that's one of the problems my brother Talib has. The second problem my brother Talib has is that, he does not manage his own finances. He does not want to manage his own finances. Finances it's a complicated issue. He would rather just have the goods and services given to him. All right, that's what he needs. He doesn't need money but goods and services. And so he needs somebody to advocate on his behalf or be in that role. So it's got nothing to do with his capacity. And obviously, he's got mobility issues. He's got, mobility issues and physical limitations and disabilities and stuff. So he needs somebody to act as his guardian, to advocate on his behalf, all right, that he trusts and consents to. That's me. All right. But right now, I've got nothing legally for me to do that. And there is no legal framework in place. So this is one of the problems I have, you see. So are you trying to, can you confirm to me that other than a lasting power of attorney or a deputyship order or a DWP appointee, there is no other legal framework for me to act on behalf of my brother now?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, but Talib could act on his own behalf, couldn't he? I mean, you're arguing the case that he does have capacity, but...
Yeah, and that's a key point here. You're saying he could act on his own behalf, but I've explained to you that under these circumstances, it's not that like he lacks capacity, he lacks ability. So, capacity is to do with, like, to take in information, to give consent, all right? But he lacks, it's very, very unfair on him because he lacks ability. So, for example, he can't go into a race, all right? He can't partake in a race, all right, which involves competitors going into a sprint because he can't walk, all right? That's got nothing to do with his mental capacity. He just lacks ability to go into a marathon, let's say, all right? But if he was to go into a marathon, he can't do it himself. He could nominate somebody to go on his behalf. So, he should not be discriminated against simply because his lack of abilities. And he has lack of abilities because of his mental health problems, all right? Those are lack of abilities, not lack of capacity. Capacity is to do with the capability. My brother has the capability of walking, but lacks the capacity to walk. Does that make sense? He has the capability of speaking English. All right, he has all the capability. He has a mouth, he has a brain. All right, and he has understanding, but he lacks the ability to speak English. So I think this is where the two things get convoluted. You see, so my brother's primary needs or failure are not to do with his lack of capacity. It's to do with his lack of ability. Now, somebody who deals with people with this mental health disabilities, and not mental health capacities, there is nothing else, is there? Because you deal with other people that are in a similar situation like my brother. Let me ask you this question. Do you have other clients that don't speak English?
Yes.
Okay. So, do those people, do you deal with them directly, or do they have other people to act on their behalf?
Can arrange for an interpreter if required.
But some of your particular clients, do they have anybody other than like professionals involved to advocate on their behalf?
They sometimes have advocates, yes.
Not professional advocates, though.
Not often, no. They're usually professional. Well, they're either family members or advocates.
Okay, yeah. So family or friends, they can use people that they want to advocate on their behalf. Now, those advocates do not have any legal rights, do they?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. And this is the problem. See, Mr. Browell, this is one of the grey areas we're in now. All right, because formally, which is unknown to the Bradford Council, is that I'm a trustee. He's a trust beneficiary. I act in his best interest. But that's like a separate issue here. With regards to Talib right now, he's got nobody to like act as his guardian. He needs a guardian. That's his need. It's not a want. He does not want a guardian. He needs a guardian. And the reason he needs a guardian is because of all the cumulative effects of his inabilities. So how can I best be Talib's guardian in the absence of any legal framework in place?
Well, wouldn't that be a matter for the court protection or the OPG? Would you be able to write to them or?
But no. I'm just asking about your experience because we've already gone through the court protection and the OPG, and I've told you this is all malevolent and fraudulent because one of the problems is that you, the local authority, don't want me to act on behalf or have anything to do with my brother Talib. And the reason that you don't want me to effectively have anything to do with my brother Talib is because I'm charging £1 million a week, which you're unwilling to pay. And the reason I know that you don't want me to have anything to do with my brother Talib is because of the situations that are ongoing. But I also know the fact that this is exactly what you did with my mum's case. You effectively kicked me out of the house and made me homeless, and then thus making Talib homeless. But so ideally, you don't want my involvement in Talib. But that's not what Talib is saying. Talib is saying he wants me to advocate. Or even yesterday he was crying to me, saying to me, who's my guardian? Who's going to look after me? Who's protecting me? Because it's surely not you, the council, and it's not surely the office of the public guardian. Mr. Nick Goodwin, who was of office of the public guardian, and put my brother into this situation, and now is in charge of the courts and tribunals. So who is in his? Let me put this in another way. All right, Mr. Browell, if you were to suffer an accident, who would you want to advocate on your behalf, or who would you want to be your guardian?
Probably somewhat like my next of kin or something like that.
Yeah, obviously. Or would you want a professional?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm asking you the question. Would you want a judge that you've never met before, but he's a high court judge, to be your guardian?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Or would you want somebody who knows you, who's your next?
I probably want to have that choice as myself.
Yes. So yeah, you would want to have that choice, and the choice, no doubt, you would want to make is someone that you have an emotional relationship with. Yes. Would you not prefer someone you have an emotional relationship with over somebody who you would have a professional relationship with?
Yes, most likely.
Okay, so put yourself in my brother's situation. My brother's got an emotional relationship with me because I'm his brother. I'm taking care of him. I'm here 24 hours a day. Or alternatively, he's got a relationship with you, which is a professional relationship, because you're obviously getting paid to engage with my brother. Now, what do you think he would prefer?
It's quite possible that he'd prefer you to be his guardian.
Yeah, or he would want me to be his guardian, advocate on his behalf, because that's sensible, isn't it? And he's expressed that in the past. So why is it the fact that if he's made that conscious decision, all right, and has capacity, and has consented to this, that you, the council, are preventing this?
I think it goes back to that catch-22 again, though. Without Talib being spoken with and being able to voice his opinion to professionals, it's difficult to say that's we're kind of going off what you say, Shazam.
Oh, okay.
So
but it's not exact. It's not going off what I'm saying. It's going off what you've just personally agreed to, which is anybody, it's common sense, right? That anybody in my brother Talib's situation would want somebody who they're familiar with, and whom they have a personal relationship with, and whom they've known all their life, over and above somebody who's got a title, a professional title. I'm not even saying you, Mr. Browell, because you're a care coordinator working for Bradford Council, you're a social worker. That means that's neither here nor there. Let's give you a higher title. Let's say you're a high court judge. Oh no, let's even give you a higher title. Let's say you're the king. All right, let's just say you, Mr. Browell, are the king of the United Kingdom. Whom would my brother, or whom would anybody in a vulnerable situation want to defend and act as his guardian? The king or his relative?
I think it could depend on the situation.
Well, Mr. Brown, I think you're being intellectually dishonest here, because a king of a country has a responsibility to all his subjects. So in the eyes of the king, you are but one of a millions of all his subjects. You are not his primary priority. However, in relation to somebody you have a personal relationship with, you're much higher in that, objectively speaking. So, as a professional, Mr. Browell, can I just ask you personally, Mr. Browell, that how many clients do you presently have in addition to my brother Talib?
About 22.
About 22. All right. So you have to spread your time, which is very limited, because you work. Can I ask you? Do you work 5 days a week?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So you work 5 days a week, no doubt, no more than 35 hours a week. All right. To deal with not only Talib, whom you've not met, or whom you're liaising with through myself, but you have 21 other people that you have to equally spread your time to, in addition to excluding times that you're taking off on holiday breaks, of maybe 40 days or a year that you're taking off on holiday breaks. So your time and focus and attention and the amount of resources that you can give to my brother Talib is much less than what I can what I provide him. So in addition to my brother Talib, previously I was dealing with my mum. All right. So that was two people that I was a guardianship for, but now I'm a guardianship for one person, which is solely my brother Talib. And in relation to that, I provide him now with 24 hours of support, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Which would you rather have? Which would anybody rather have? So I think it's intellectually dishonest of you to state that, oh, that's what we're hearing from you. Any reasonable person would want £1 million over £10. And that is what I represent. I represent £1 million of support a week compared to, the peanuts that you're willing to come and speak to Talib about. And that's the first point. The second point is that Talib has more than on numerous occasions expressed to you that he does not want anything to do with any of you professionals. Alright, we're to a point where I'm reiterating now that your predecessors, Fungai Muchichitiri and Baljit Nota, had clandestinely gone to Oldham and knocked on the door, where Taliban opened up the door and told you guys to all fuck off. So isn't this disingenuous of you when you keep on stating that, you're just saying this to give the assumption that, or the indication that I'm making this up? It just stands to reason. On the one hand, you're asking my brother would expect my brother to be reasonable, and he's being very reasonable. He wants to have a relationship with me. To a point where, Mr. Browell, your manager, Nadia Khan, your associates, Dr. Shaukat Ali, and your predecessor, Deepak Patel, alright, had come to visit my brother Talib at BRI Hospital in February, March 2014, alright, and where I had threatened and told everybody then, even his GP, alright, even his GP, that I'm going to murder him. So when Talib knew himself, while he was in an independent place like in a hospital, and I said to everybody that if Talib returns into my care, I'm going to kill him, and where Shaukat Ali and Nadia Khan, your manager's manager, and Dr. and Mr. Deepak Patel sat down and spoke with Talib and said, look, your brother's threatening to kill you if we take you back into his care. And he said, I don't care, I want to go back to see my brother, I want to go back home and be with my brother, I know he's only bluffing. And so where your seniors, Mark Truin and the nurse, brought my brother physically to the house. So when I'm stating something serious like, I don't want to care for him, I'm going to kill him, you the council, the health authority and the hospital physically brought him into my care. So I can't win either way. So now when I'm telling you, look, this is what he wants, you've got it on record, and you're saying, but we've not had an opportunity to speak to him. He's told you that in 2014, he's consistently telling you that, alright, and I've made videos of him saying that. I've got videos of him giving me his lasting power of attorney, and I'm explaining to you only yesterday that he's telling me who's my guardian because he's worried that if something happens to me, he's effectively dead because he becomes institutionalized, and the same things are going to happen to him that happened to our mother. So he's worried and scared. And I have to tell him these things because obviously I need to get his informed consent. So I try to keep him fully informed, and then you keep on going on the same narrative that it's all my fault, I'm doing all this stuff. Mr. Browell, the reason I've contacted you today is because obviously I'm not doing anything other than caring for my vulnerable family members. I've contacted you today because you, the council, are doing something. You are targeting and victimizing and murdering my family members and harassing me. Now when all I've done, and Mr. Brown, in your own personal circumstances, when you first came to see us in October 2021 in Oldham, since then all I've said is, look, disengage from us. We don't want anything to do with Bradford Council. You're not in a position to provide us with any care or support services. You've got no money left. You're incompetent. You're malevolent. We don't want nothing to do with you. And look what's happened. Our mothers ended up dying, being murdered. My brother Nazim's been murdered by you, the council, and you simply won't stop. So I'm desperately ringing you up today to tell you, look, who is this person? Tell them to stop harassing us. Speak to me, all right, and deal with me directly rather than through this charade of institutions. I'm not buying any of it. All that's happening is that you're exposing. You are effectively exposing all these other associates of your criminal enterprise, one of which is Mr. Nick Goodwin, who was the public guardian. He didn't do anything. And I'm remind myself that in 2014, this pivotal year is 2014, when in February 2014, I've made allegations in front of Nadia Khan, in front of Deepak Patel, in front of his GP, in front of the hospital. I'm going to murder him, alright, if he comes into my care. And you force my brother Talib into my care. And then subsequently, when my other brother Nazim was in your care, you murdered him and tried to frame me for his death. I'm just reminded of the fact that previously the public guardian to Nick Goodwin was Alan Eccles. And I written to the public guardian, look, my brother's life's in danger. Bradford Council are going to murder my brother Nazim, and they got the housing, the care home involved. I made these exclamations to the public guardian, didn't do nothing. They said, oh no, we can't do anything. We're relying on Bradford Council. So, you know, when I go around the house, you know, I can go to the MPs, I can go to the Office of the Public Guardian, I can go to the Care Quality Commission, I can go to the Department of Work and Pensions. All roads lead back to Bradford Council. And in Bradford Council, you're the only person I've spoken to. The last time we spoke, did we not say that Mr. Ismail Mullah should look to contact me so we can find out about the money?
I think you did, yeah.
I've not received any contact from anybody from Bradford Council. The only thing I've received is a council tax liability now. Nothing's happening, is it? You simply, you know, it's very frustrating. And obviously, I know, Mr. Browell, that you're not the source of the frustration. But can you understand the frustration that I'm feeling? That I'm only given the option to talk to you. Nobody wants to talk to me. All right. And because simply nobody's willing to answer any questions. And so what they're doing is they're utilizing the local authority as a vehicle to run me over and hurt and harm me and my brother Talib. But there's no person. It's just like, oh, this procedure, this policy, this, you know, this court order, this, nothing. All right. Fundamentally, look, it's now mid-February. All right. My brother's not got access to any of his money, and yet you're billing us. You know, you're billing us for council tax. Well, how is he meant to? You know, we've got no access to any money. Now, I understand that that's not what you're involved in, but I just don't understand, you know, what your involvement is. Because ideally, you're not a social worker, all right? He's not he's no longer under the care of Rashmi Dixon to be under the district care, community mental health team. So nobody's giving us a clear enough answer. So can you just please provide me with some clarity where other than this grey area that you put us into, that what certainty do we have?
I don't know about certainty, but as Talib was discharged from the care of Dr. Dixon, that means that he isn't on what's called the care programme approach, a CPA, but he is on standard care. So if he's got one professional working with him, i.e. myself, that's allocated, then he is on standard care, and that's in what capacity I'm working with Talib,
Okay.
or I was allocated.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. So because he's still allocated a professional, which is yourself, he's still on a standard care. What does that involve?
Well, trying to see the person, trying as the role of the care coordinator, try to bring together any kind of care agencies and things like that to make sure people are supported to receive medication. Also, it can be advocating on their behalf with regards to housing and benefits and things like that. Okay, all right. So what would be the difference between your role, all right, in the standard care model, which you're stating, and a social worker working for Bradford Council? Depending on, well, it could be what type of social worker, what team they would work in, whether they would be working for adult social care, older people's, whether it's learning disabilities and things like that. But pretty much they've got similar. The difference is that those type of social workers work with people who generally don't have a mental health illness or diagnosis, and people who do then are allocated someone from CMHT, whether that be a social worker or a CPN.
Okay, all right. Because you know you're mentioning standard care. All right, is under standard care. That's the standard care that you're mentioning. All right, which is solely yourself, which is Bradford Council. He's got no input from the District Care Trust, has he? Or the Community Mental Health.
The standard care is part of the District Care Trust.
So have they outsourced standard care to the local authority?
No, because I work in CMHT. It says CMHT on my ID badge.
Yep.
But I also have like the emblem of Bradford Council. So I work in the CMHT, but I'm an employee of Bradford Council.
Yeah, and it's that aspect that is obviously really, really confusing, and I think is fraudulent. All right, that I think is fraudulent. All right, because obviously what it seems to me is that you're a fifth column. Do you understand the concept of a fifth column?
No.
Okay. Well, let me just in international espionage, spying, what often happens is they get a double agent to work in another corporation. All right. So, for example, you're acting as a fifth column for Bradford Council because you are working inside of another corporation, which is Bradford District Care Trust, and you have access to their operational activities. All right, and you are employed by another organization, which is Bradford Council. So that's what a fifth column is. All right, and so there's nothing stopping you from work that this setup being put up in other places. Right. So, for example, another agent from Bradford Council can work in the police force and say we got an integrated service and so on and so forth. But because they work in the police force, they've got full access to people's criminal records. Because it is correct, isn't it, that as a council employee, you've got access to my brother's healthcare records.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct, isn't it? So he's got healthcare records, and we've already discussed this, that, you know, people from the city mental health team have got in touch with his GP and got access to his GP records as well. All right? So, can you understand?
Yeah, yep. It depends. I haven't got full access to GP records. It depends on the information and the person who's adding the information, whether it's shared with other organisations.
Okay. What I mean by that, and I'll give you a clear indication of what I mean by access to healthcare records. You have been in a position, so somebody from the city mental health team has been in a position to update my brother's records regarding his address. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, you have been informed that he may have diabetes.
I think, there was some mention of that.
Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. So, yeah. So I have not Talib's not informed you of this, have they? Talib's not asked you to change his address for his GP, and Talib's not informed you that he may have diabetes. All right. I have not informed you. So effectively, you have got access to his healthcare records. That's what I mean by that.
Well, I said that there's some information there that is just on there on the notes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's fair enough. Now, can I ask, are you a healthcare professional?
You could say so, yeah.
Not if I could say so. It's either, if you're a healthcare professional, which healthcare organization do you belong to? Like, for example, a healthcare professional like a GP, or all your colleagues in the community mental health team are registered with other healthcare bodies, aren't they? If you're a healthcare professional, which healthcare body are you registered with?
I don't know, HCPC was like healthcare professionals.
Okay, so are you registered? Are you registered with them?
Yeah.
What is HCP? I
think it's Social Work England now, but yeah.
Yeah. Also, so Social Work England is not a healthcare body, is it? It's a social care body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. A healthcare body would be, for example, the General Medical Council. Yeah.
Right.
So Dr. Rashmi Dixon is registered with the General Medical Council, all right, so that makes her a healthcare professional. Other people that work in the healthcare profession, can you understand, they would be regulated or are managed by the Care Quality Commission. You personally do not come under, like I said, I don't think you are a healthcare professional. You're a social care professional. So there's that distinction, you see.
It's not just me who's employed by the local authority and works in CMHT. It's like many councils and who operate like that, and it's certainly the case across all the mental health teams in Bradford.
Okay.
They've got employees who work for.
Okay, all right. Well, the thing is, if I'm saying that's a fraud. That is the definition of a fraud. So if it's done nationwide, is neither here nor there. Maybe it's a nationwide fraud, but it's still a fraud. But can you understand that it would be a conflict of interest because you've got access to my brother Talib's healthcare records? I think that's a conflict of interest. Just imagine if you were working at Lloyd's Bank and yet being an employee of Bradford Council. So you would have access to my brother's banking account details. All right. In a similar vein, it concerns me immensely because obviously, as you're aware, Mr. Browell, I take data protection very seriously. That you've got basically a back channel to get, and not just you personally, but through this arrangement, which I'm stating is a clear fraud. All right, you've got access to his healthcare records, which is meant to be sacrosanct, which is meant to be highly privileged information. Because maybe my brother Talib or anybody in his position has got health conditions that he doesn't want other people to be aware of. That's embarrassing to him. Maybe he's got AIDS. All right, maybe he's got a sexually transmitted disease, such as gonorrhea, and all these other things. You understand? So we have a fundamental right to privacy. My brother or I can go to my GP practice and explain to them that I've got, and they can give me medication. I can go to them because I've got some sexually transmitted disease. But can you understand me being, for example, let's just take me as an example. I'm going out and telling people that I'm an imam of a mosque. All right, I'm a married guy. I've got children. I'm a holy person. But on the side, I've got this other life that I'm hiring prostitutes out and I'm having sex with them willy-nilly. That's nobody else's business but my business, and obviously my wife's business or my community's business, all right? But obviously because I've been having sex with loads of dirty prostitutes, I've now got sexually transmitted disease. I don't want anybody to know about that, but I need to get health advice from my GP practice, which is a private and confidential thing, all right? So that's now on my medical records, and then you, Mr. Browell, can go into my medical records because you work for Bradford Council and make that public. Can you understand how that could be a potential scenario and how that would be of concern to me?
Yeah, I can understand that, yeah.
So can you understand that in my capacity as my brother's guardian, that I'm going to do everything to protect his integrity and his confidentiality and his healthcare records, and that's why I think this is a complete and utter fraud where Bradford Council employees, because you're not governed by any healthcare body, you're not like this as healthcare professionals. I believe some of them, I'm not sure if this is the case, but they are given the Hippocratic oath, which is basically to not do any harm. All right, that's what I think. I'm not sure if this is legally in place, but most healthcare professionals, all right, are under the Hippocratic oath of doing no harm to others. All right, and let's just say, for example, people in the healthcare profession look to abide by the Hippocratic oath to not do any harm to others, which would then allow me to take my brother to a healthcare professional, knowing the fact that they are holding themselves accountable to the Hippocratic oath. You would not be under that Hippocratic oath, would you, as a social care worker?
Mm-hmm.
So can you understand?
Like I said, it's just commonplace. So I don't know the intricacies of the legalities of it. It's just that that's the way that the system one works. That's the way way that people access records and things like that. So
Yes, I understand this, and I'm fully aware of what the fraud is. I understand that this is like a haphazard kind of thing. I understand that the local authority, and I know the fact, and I keenly follow this, that parliamentarians are quite keen to integrate health and social care. I think this has been the Conservative Party manifesto that we're going to try to, and this is an ongoing thing. That's ongoing. It's not actually happened. Health and social care, as far as my understanding is, presently in 2022, it has two separate things. There is discussion of integrating them together to save costs. As you can appreciate, there's a crossover between what healthcare do and what social care do, as is quite clearly evident in the community mental health team, which you're telling me about. All right, which is that there's a crossover. All right, some of the things that the healthcare can do, social care can't do. I know one of the problems, let me just give you a perfect example. One of the problems that is happening now in 2023 is that a lot of people are taking up hospital beds when they're ready to be discharged, but there's nowhere for them to be discharged to. Namely, there's no safe, they can't go home right now, and there's no safe place for them, but they don't need healthcare. Now, if, for example, healthcare and social care were integrated, we would not be having this problem in 2013. All right? Because of the very fact that healthcare and social care are not integrated the way you're telling me they are integrated in Bradford through the community mental health team. This does not exist in law. All right. So therefore, one of the problems that many people hospitals are particularly struggling with is that they've cured the acute illness, the patient is ready to be discharged, but they're not safe enough to go home. So, but there's no social care in place. All right. So that's one of the problems, because social care and healthcare are not integrated, even though it may be beneficial to do so. In my particular circumstances, given my own unique set of circumstances, I don't think social care and healthcare should be integrated, because there is a conflict of interest, as is quite clearly evident in my conversation with you today. All right. Because the social care, maybe social care should be a separate corporate organization like the NHS. But it shouldn't be done by Bradford Council. Definitely. Because obviously the Bradford Council are then in a position of power where they can victimize someone like me who was looking to expose fraud and corruption in Bradford Council. So can you understand that the central government pays a lot of money to have an independent National Health Service, which is a separate corporate entity. The National Health Service has come into existence through an act of parliament, which is then subdivided into local, regional trusts, which all come under the umbrella of the National Health Service. All right, those are independent.
I need to type up my notes.
Okay, all right, Mr. Browell, I've been very courteous that you've given me the time to express this, but I think we've been on this call now. Let me just see now. We've been on this call for over an hour now, all right, and I'm grateful for you to give me this time. But the bottom line is that I'm no further on in the clarity or security that me and my brother need. Yeah, we've got no security of accommodation. We've got no security of benefit money. We've got no security of anything. We've got no security of medication or healthcare. So, I'm simply asking whom should I speak to about this?
Like I said, I can ask, and I've said asked before, but I can ask if there's anyone else.
Because right now, Mr. Browell, you're telling me after working with me and my brother Talib since October last year that there is nobody senior that I can speak to.
I think when you have spoken to people who are senior, they haven't been able to kind of change the situation either.
I know. Well, I mean, the thing is, speaking to your seniors would be obviously Vicina Brown, which is no longer, is it Mohammed? I can't remember what's your manager called again? Mohammed Fayaz. Obviously, their manager is Nadia Khan. Is that still correct, Nadia Khan?
Yeah.
Mark Truin is not back with yourself?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
no.
all right. So obviously then it's the Health and Wellbeing Director, Ian McGregor or something, and then obviously going up to that is Kirsten England, all right. But no. But you see, I don't care about your seniors. I'm interested in the decision maker. Somebody's made a decision to continue to antagonize me, all right, by giving me this council tax liability, all right, when you got all the money. So obviously this is what's triggered my call to you today. Otherwise, the last time we spoke, I said, look, I don't think I'll be speaking to you again, and that's true. What I've done several times in the past. On the background, you keep on doing things to trigger me. All right. All I'm looking to do is live a peaceful life, caring for my brother. Which obviously this time that I've given you, or which time that you've given me, you're going to be, like as we've explained, financially remunerated by Bradford Council for. But this is the time that I'm not going to be remunerated for, and this is time that I can best be investing in the care and support of my brother. All right, which is the priority here. But ultimately, Mr. Browell, you the local authority, look at the amount of money you've made off us, and how much money you're saving. You're basically exploiting us. And then, obviously, it's very, very disingenuous of Bradford Council to front someone like you, Mr. Browell, who is trying to do his best, but can't do anything. So, I at this stage, Mr. Browell, I think I need to insist on Bradford Council, the decision maker, speaking to me. And the decision maker, and the decision maker is not Ismail Mullah, who just claims to be just an employee as well. I need to know who's making these decisions that are targeting me and endangering me and my brother's life. Who is the decision maker? I need to speak to them.
Yeah, I'll ask Shazad yet. I'll add that to the notes.
Okay, so you're not in a position to provide me with anything further clarity. Okay, that's fair.
No, I'm not aware of that myself.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Let's look to end the conversation. Can I just leave it with you that just in regards to my brother Talib, I'm still continuing to provide him with care. I'm still charging you, the local authority, £1 million a week, whether you choose to accept that or not, and the fact that obviously my brother's care needs are being fully met in the absence of any healthcare involvement or any social care involvement or any state involvement. The only thing that we're struggling with is financially. All right, we've financially been put into a situation where the cost of living crisis is hitting in. We've got no money, and particularly you, the local authority, are now looking to extort more money out of us by giving us a council tax liability, when ultimately we would be benefiting from a council tax rebate and exemption, and also having housing benefit, which you're saving on. So I don't know what else to say, Mr. Browell. Thank you for your time. All right, but I at this stage I will be needing to speak to somebody more senior in Bradford Council, especially since it's been a year. Just one final point, Mr. Browell, before we go. It's been a year since I made the allegation that there's been substantial theft at the property. My mother's jewellery, Bradford Council are still holding, which they took from my safe in my bedroom since in December 2013. In 2013, they took the safe in my bedroom where my mother's jewellery was. They still got my mother's jewellery after murdering her. So they've still got my mother's jewellery. They've got £1,000 from my house that they've taken, and they've got over £58 million of my Bitcoin wallet, which they're not giving me back. I need to speak to somebody about this. Whom can you advise I need to speak to?
I don't know. A similar question. I wouldn't know, but I can try and find out.
Are you familiar with what is his name now? The solicitors. Who's the solicitor? Are you involved with any solicitors at Bradford Council? Mr. Kenner, Mr. Graham Kenner.
The legal department.
Yeah, have you spoken to Mr. Kenner? Can I speak to Mr. Kenner?
I can ask if he'll speak for you.
Yeah, because if it's not Mr. Kenner, then obviously my understanding is that Parveen Akhtar, who was a city solicitor, has left. And but it's the city solicitors are just solicitors. They're not decision makers.
Right.
And the decision maker, my understanding, would be Kirsten England, who my understanding is now that she's handed in a resignation.
Yeah.
Have we discussed this before, that she's resigned from her post?
I don't think we have.
Yeah, so obviously, Kirsten England is going to be leaving Bradford Council in 6 months, in July or June. All right. And she's not spoken to me throughout her tenure as the chief executive officer since 2015 when she came on board. Alright, so she's been with Bradford Council for 8 years. And over that 8 years, or if not 10 years, me and my family have been suffering. So, like I said, I think it's just a malevolence. So, please get back to me with somebody. So, when can we speak next?
2 weeks' time.
Yeah, as usual, Mr. Browell. I'll give you 2 weeks. You understand? It's going to make no difference, but let's just leave it at that then. Thank you, Mr. Browell. Have a nice day.
Okay, thanks for that. See you now. Thanks, bye.
It's just absolute waste of my time and resources dealing with people that are going out of the way to be malevolent to me. That this call took 1 hour and 20 minutes. And literally they're persecuting, hounding me, harassing me in my own home, made me financially destitute, put my brother's life in danger after having murdered my mother in 2022, having murdered my older brother in 2014, having murdered my father in 2009. There's nobody I can go to. The highest person in the was a public guardian, Nick Goodwin, who is now the head, the CEO of the Courts and Tribunal Services, all murderers. All right, I'm dealing with everybody who's partaking in murder. All right. And murdering my family members off. I'm forced to deal with more concerningly or more dishearteningly, the murderers are my own sisters and brothers. All right, Shaida B, Adalat, Khalda have assisted in murdering my mother, assisted the council in murdering my mother. Wasim, Tasveer and Shagufta, my nieces and nephews, have assisted in murdering my brother Nazim in 2014. I don't want to be dealing with murderers, and I'm forced to do so because the murderers are in a position of power and authority, and I'm disenfranchised and put into this situation. So it's very, very disheartening. And as you can appreciate, this Mr. Browell is trying to be open and transparent, but this aspect of the integration of Bradford Council with Bradford District Care Trust through a team called Community Mental Health Team, which is the same team effectively, which is a non-legal entity that have convicted and put me into prison. Not the Crown Prosecution Service, not the police, but the Community Mental Health Team as a integrated organization has effectively criminalized me, sent me to prison and taken away all our money, and is continuing to hound and persecute us. And I can't in turn take legal action against them because they're not. The Community Mental Health Team is not a legal entity. The legal entity is Bradford Council and the Bradford District Care Trust, which is the NHS, Bradford District Care Trust, which is part of the NHS, and Bradford Council, which is part of the government. So it's just an impossible situation they're placing me into. And yet every day that goes by is a day that we're not getting any access to any money or support services, and my brother is deteriorating and there's nobody I can go to. And yet at the same time they're prodding and poking me with these malevolent acts of aggression behind the backs through administratively, all right, by unilaterally suspending my benefit money, so I got no access to money, then unilaterally sending out council tax liabilities, and then putting me to court. And then the courts are run by Nick Goodwin, who the senior executive is Nick Goodwin, who's already partly responsible for my mother's murder and making my brother a ward of the state. And then obviously the judges that they get involved are all being put in place by the council, who's making recommendations and making these judges particularly to target and victimize me. So the whole of the system, judicial British, or the whole of the British system is corrupt and to the core and targeting and victimizing me, and I'm all alone and isolated as they want me to be. So I can't speak to anybody about this other than themselves. All I can do is just record it for future prosperity, and so maybe somebody in the future will see and understand the truth of what's really happening, rather than the lies and deception that they try to convince the populace of. Let's stop now.